The person who never asks for help isn't just strong. They might be carrying a trauma response known as hyper-independence. The friend who constantly cracks jokes might be hiding high-functioning depression. We often dismiss these habits as personality quirks or just who we are. But psychology tells a different story. In 2025, mental health professionals are finally drawing a clear line between eccentric behavior and genuine symptoms that scream for attention. This isn't about diagnosing yourself with a Google search. It is about recognizing the 10 specific behaviors that look normal on the surface, but are actually the mind's way of signaling that it's drowning. Coming in at number 10 is something that looks like hesitation, but is actually a state of mental paralysis. We all struggle to pick a restaurant sometimes, but for people suffering from abulomania or severe anxiety, making a simple decision feels physically painful. It isn't that they don't want to choose, but rather that their brain overcalculates every possible negative outcome until it freezes. In 2025, psychologists describe this not as being wishy-washy, but as a failure of the brain's executive function. The fear of making the wrong choice overrides the ability to make any choice at all. You might see this in a friend who stares at a Netflix menu for an hour, terrified that picking a bad movie will ruin the entire evening. That intense pressure to be perfect in even the smallest tasks is often a glaring sign of generalized anxiety disorder. At number 9, we have behaviors like skin picking, hair pulling, or chewing the inside of your cheek. Most people brush these off as bad habits or signs of boredom, but clinically, they are classified as body-focused repetitive behaviors. This isn't just biting your nails before a presentation. This is picking at your skin until it bleeds, because the physical sensation provides the only relief from internal chaos. It operates on a cycle where tension builds up, the behavior releases it, and shame immediately follows. Research updated in late 2024 connects these behaviors strongly to ADHD and OCD. The brain seeks stimulation or regulation through physical pain or sensation. If you find yourself scanning your skin for imperfections to fix for hours, you aren't just fidgeting. Your nervous system is desperately trying to regulate itself. Number 8 is the master of disguise. Stanford researchers famously coined the duck syndrome to describe students who appear calm on the surface while paddling furiously underwater. In the context of mental illness, this is high-functioning depression or dysthymia. These individuals don't stay in bed all day. They run companies, manage households, and never miss a deadline. But the moment the door closes, they collapse. The scary part is the emotional disconnect, because they perform happiness rather than feeling it. A 2025 study on workplace mental health found that nearly 30% of high achievers exhibit signs of this smiling depression. They believe that because they are productive, they cannot possibly be sick. But productivity is not a measure of mental health. If you feel like an actor playing the role of a functional human being every single day, the script might be written by depression. If you are recognizing yourself or someone else in this list, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We are committed to releasing weekly videos that help you understand the human mind. Now, let us get back to the list. Number 7 explains why you might stare at an unwashed dish for 3 days, physically unable to clean it. This is pathological demand avoidance, or PDA. Often associated with the autism spectrum, or ADHD, it presents as an extreme resistance to everyday demands. The brain perceives a simple task, like answering an email or folding laundry, as a direct threat to autonomy. Your body reacts with a fight-or-flight response, flooding your system with cortisol over a simple chore. It looks like laziness to the outside world, but inside, it feels like a brick wall has been erected between you and the task. You want to do it, but you can't. This paralysis of will is a core symptom of executive dysfunction, proving that procrastination is rarely about being lazy. It is almost always about anxiety. We usually picture depression as sadness, crying, or silence. But at number 6, we have the symptom that is most often missed in men: Explosive irritability. If you or someone you know snaps over spilled milk or flies into a rage in traffic, it might not be an anger management issue. It is often a sign of a brain that has zero emotional bandwidth left. Clinical data from 2025 highlights that over 40% of men with depression display anger rather than sadness. The mind is so exhausted from fighting internal battles that it perceives every external inconvenience as a major attack. This constant state of agitation is like a raw nerve exposed to the air. Everything hurts, so everything makes you scream. Recognizing this as depression rather than just a bad temper can literally save relationships and lives. Number 5 takes us into the world of fantasy, but not in a healthy way. Everyone daydreams, but maladaptive daydreaming is an addiction to dissociation. People with this condition can spend hours pacing around a room, listening to music, and constructing elaborate movies in their heads where they are the hero, the villain, or the victim. It differs from normal imagination because it interferes with life. You might skip meals, ignore friends, or stay up all night just to stay in the fantasy. It is a coping mechanism for severe loneliness or trauma. The real world feels too painful or boring, so the brain escapes to a place it can control. While not yet a standalone diagnosis in the DSM-5, thousands of clinical accounts in 2025 confirm it as a rampant symptom of dissociative disorders and ADHD. At number 4 is a reaction that feels like a physical blow to the chest. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. If a friend changes the tone of their text message and you immediately assume they hate you, that is RSD. It is characterized by extreme emotional sensitivity to perceived rejection or criticism. This isn't just being too sensitive. For people with ADHD or borderline personality disorder, rejection triggers the same brain pathways as physical pain. You might spiral into self-hatred over a minor correction at work or a vague comment from a partner. The brain lacks the filter to regulate the emotional impact, so a small slight feels like a life-ending catastrophe. This often leads to people becoming people-pleasers, terrified that one wrong move will cause everyone to abandon them. Number 3 is the behavior of the shapeshifter, where you might change your entire personality depending on who you are with. We all adapt socially, but mirroring is a defense mechanism often seen in borderline personality disorder and complex trauma. You might adopt your partner's hobbies, your boss's political views, or your friend's manner of speaking because you have no solid sense of self. You become a chameleon to avoid abandonment. If you are exactly who the other person wants you to be, they can't reject you. But the cost is exhaustion. You feel like a hollow shell, unsure of what you actually like or believe. It is a survival tactic learned in childhood environments where being yourself was dangerous, so you learn to be whatever the room needed you to be. Number 2 is the most terrifying for those who experience it. Intrusive thoughts. This is when your brain flashes a horrific image like hurting someone you love, jumping off a bridge, or shouting something offensive in church. The key difference between a fleeting, weird thought and a sign of OCD is the reaction. A person with OCD becomes paralyzed by these thoughts, believing that having the thought is just as bad as doing the action. They might develop rituals to cancel out the bad thought. These thoughts are ego-dystonic, meaning they are the opposite of what the person actually wants or believes. If you live in constant fear of your own mind's secret cinema, it is not because you are a bad person. It is a mechanical glitch in the brain's warning system. And finally, at number 1, the behavior that society praises but the soul suffers for. Hyper-independence. This is the person who refuses help even when they are sick, moving furniture, or drowning in debt. It looks like strength, but it is actually a trauma response. It usually stems from a childhood where caregivers were unreliable or absent. The child learned a brutal lesson that they cannot trust anyone to meet their needs, so they must do it themselves. As an adult, relying on others feels unsafe. Asking for help triggers a panic response because it requires vulnerability. If you would rather collapse from exhaustion than ask a friend for a favor, you aren't just independent. You are protecting yourself from the pain of being let down. Healing begins when you realize that needing others doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Now, before you diagnose yourself with everything on this list, we need to make an important distinction. The difference between a personality quirk and a mental illness lies in two words: distress and impairment. You must ask if the behavior causes you intense suffering or stops you from living the life you want. If you double-check the lock at night, you're cautious. If you check it 50 times and are late for work because of it, that is a symptom. In 2025, the stigma is fading, but the confusion remains. These behaviors are not character flaws. They are data points. They are your brain trying to communicate that it needs support, regulation, or safety. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward rewriting the story of your own mind. You might have spent years thinking you were just lazy, difficult, or broken, when in reality, you were surviving. The most powerful thing you can do is stop fighting these behaviors with shame and start treating them with curiosity. Whether it's the hyper-independence that keeps you lonely or the perfectionism that keeps you frozen, these are not your identity. They are just things you do. And things you do can be changed. If this video helped you see yourself more clearly, share it with someone who might need it too.